April 25th. Our reading today in the Old Testament takes place in the book of Judges, chapter 4, verse 1, through chapter 5, verse 31. And as you know, the society of that day was strongly masculine, so it was humiliating when women had leadership in the land. The pages of church history record the names of godly women like Deborah, who knew God's will, rallied God's people, and won God's victories. And we are very grateful for them. Now in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32, Barak is named as a man of faith, but Deborah enlisted him and saved the day. What a strange victory. God used two women, a jug of milk, a hammer, a tent peg, and a storm to defeat the enemy. Yes, it's true, God does work in mysterious ways, and He continues to work in mysterious ways today in your life and mine. One person's faith and obedience can make a difference in all of history. Whether you are a leader like Deborah or a follower like Barak, be sure to be a believer. That comes first, because faith makes the difference between defeat and victory. And in Judges 5, we see that Deborah and Barak cooperated in fighting the battle and also in praising the Lord. Their song reveals some truths about our spiritual warfare in this world. And some of those truths include be willing to fight. The leaders cannot lead unless soldiers are willing to obey. And the question is, of course, are you a willing soldier? Know that the Lord goes before you. He fights your battles, but you have to follow Him. The God of history can help you do great exploits for Him today, but you must display faith and trust. He'll do that if you'll trust Him and do His will. He is able. And with that, let's hear the Word of God today as we read from the Old Testament. April 25th. Judges chapter 4, verse 1 through chapter 5, verse 31. After Ehud's death, the Israelites again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord handed them over to King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Sisera, who had 900 iron chariots, ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet who had become a judge in Israel. She would hold court under the palm of Deborah, which stood between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to settle their disputes. One day she sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, who lived in Kadesh in the land of Naphtali. She said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Assemble 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor. I will lure Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, to the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." Barak told her, "I will go, but only if you go with me." "Very well," she replied, "I will go with you. But since you have made this choice, you will receive no honor, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. At Kadesh, Barak called together the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 warriors marched up with him. Deborah also marched with them. Now Heber the Kenite, a descendant of Moses' brother-in-law, Hobab, had moved away from the other members of his tribe and pitched his tent by the oak of Zahananim near Kadesh. When Sisera was told that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, he called for all 900 of his iron chariots and all of his warriors, and they marched from Harosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Get ready. Today the Lord will give you victory over Sisera, for the Lord is marching ahead of you." So Barak led his 10,000 warriors down the slopes of Mount Tabor into battle. When Barak attacked, the Lord threw Sisera and all his charioteers and warriors into a panic. Then Sisera leaped down from his chariot and escaped on foot. Barak chased the enemy and their chariots all the way to Harosheth-Hagoyim, killing all of Sisera's warriors. Not a single one of them was left alive. Meanwhile, Sisera ran to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because Heber's family was on friendly terms with King Jabin of Hazor. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come into my tent, sir. Come in, don't be afraid." So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. "Please give me some water," he said. "I'm thirsty." So she gave him some milk to drink and covered him again. "Stand at the door of the tent," he told her. "If anybody comes and asks you if there is anyone here, say no." But when Sisera fell asleep from exhaustion, Jael quietly crept up to him with a hammer and tent peg. Then she drove the tent peg through his temple and into the ground, and so he died. When Barak came looking for Sisera, Jael went out to meet him. She said, "Come, and I will show you the man you're looking for." So he followed her into the tent and found Sisera lying there dead, with the tent peg through his temple. So on that day, Israel saw God subdue Jabin, the Canaanite king, and from that time on, Israel became stronger and stronger against King Jabin until they finally destroyed him. On that day, Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, sang this song: "When Israel's leaders take charge, and the people gladly follow, bless the Lord. Listen, you kings, pay attention, you mighty rulers, for I will sing to the Lord. I will lift up my song to the Lord, the God of Israel. Lord, when you set out from Seir and marched across the fields of Edom, the earth trembled, and the cloudy skies poured down rain. The mountains quaked at the coming of the Lord. Even Mount Sinai shook in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, and in the days of Jael, people avoided the main roads, and travelers stayed on crooked side paths. There were few people left in the villages of Israel, until Deborah arose as a mother for Israel. When Israel chose new gods, war erupted at the city gates. Yet not a shield or spear could be seen among 40,000 warriors in Israel. My heart goes out to Israel's leaders, and to those who gladly followed. Bless the Lord. You who ride on fine donkeys and sit on fancy saddle blankets, listen. And you who must walk along the road, listen. Listen to the village musicians gathered at the watering holes. They recount the righteous victories of the Lord and the victories of his villagers in Israel. Then the people of the Lord marched down to the city gates. Wake up, Deborah, wake up, wake up, wake up, and sing a song. Arise, Barak. Lead your captives away, son of Abinoam. Down from Tabor marched the remnant against the mighty. The people of the Lord marched down against mighty warriors. They came down from Ephraim, a land that once belonged to the Amalekites. And Benjamin also followed you. From Machir the commanders marched down. From Zebulun came those who carry the rod of authority. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah and Barak. They followed Barak, rushing into the valley. But in the tribe of Reuben there was great indecision. Why did you sit at home among the sheepfolds to hear the shepherds whistle for their flocks? In the tribe of Reuben there was great indecision. Gilead remained east of the Jordan, and Dan, why did he stay home? Asher sat unmoved at the seashore, remaining in his harbors, but Zebulun risked his life, as did Naphtali on the battlefield. The kings of Canaan fought at Tahanach near Megiddo's springs, but they carried off no treasures of battle. The stars fought from heaven. The stars in their orbits fought against Sisera. The Kishon River swept them away. That ancient river, the Kishon. March on, my soul, with courage. Then the horses' hooves hammered the ground, the galloping of Sisera's mighty steeds. Let the people of Miraz be cursed, said the angel of the Lord. Let them be utterly cursed, because they did not come to help the Lord against the mighty warriors. Most blessed is Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. May she be blessed above all women who live in tents. Sisera asked for water, and Jael gave him milk in a bowl fit for kings. She brought him yogurt. Then with her left hand she reached for a tent peg, and with her right hand she reached for the workman's hammer. She hit Sisera, crushing his head. She pounded the tent peg through his head, piercing his temples. He sank, he fell, he lay dead at her feet. From the window Sisera's mother looked out. Through the window she watched for his return, saying, "Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why don't we hear the sound of chariot wheels?" A reply comes from her wise women, and she repeats these words to herself. They are dividing the captured goods they found, a woman or two for every man. There are gorgeous robes for Sisera, and colorful, beautifully embroidered robes for me. Lord, may all your enemies die as Sisera did. But may those who love you rise like the sun at full strength. Then there was peace in the land for 40 years. April 25th. As we look into the New Testament, today we'll be reading from the book of Luke, chapter 22, verses 35 through 53. Satan is in the temple. Judas was energized by Satan when he made his agreement with the religious leaders. Satan is a liar and a murderer, and he helped Judas with his deception. But Satan deceived Judas as well, and the former disciple ended up a suicide. It's dangerous to make deals with the devil. And we'll see Satan in the upper room. The devil already controlled Judas, but he had to ask permission to sift the disciples and to tempt Peter. See, Satan is not all-powerful and must obey the limits set by the Lord. The apostles had experienced some great blessings that evening, but danger was very near, lurking right there in the room. So be on your guard when you've had a rich spiritual experience, for Satan is about to attack. And especially beware when you're trying to decide who is the greatest. And we'll see Satan in the garden. Jesus said to those who had come to arrest him, "But this is your hour and the power of darkness." Because he had prayed and was yielded to the Father's will, Jesus was prepared for the arrest, but the disciples were not. If ever the work of Christ appeared to be ruined, it was there in that garden. But that was when Jesus was doing his very best in the Father's will. And then we'll see Satan in the courts as well. Satan was in the courtyard to sift Peter and in the council chamber to lead the men astray. His victory over the religious leaders was complete, for he blinded their eyes to the truth, and they condemned their own Messiah. Pilate wanted to get rid of Jesus as quickly and as easily as possible, but you cannot avoid making serious decisions about him. Pilate ended up condemning an innocent man, releasing a guilty man, and making friends with a wicked man. What a record for a Roman ruler whose responsibility it was to uphold the law and give people justice. And with that, let's begin today's reading in the New Testament. April 25th, Luke chapter 22, verses 35 through 53. Then Jesus asked them, the disciples, "When I sent you out to preach the good news, and you did not have money, a traveler's bag, or extra clothing, did you lack anything?" "No," they replied. "But now," he said, "take your money and a traveler's bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your clothes and buy one. For the time has come for this prophecy about me to be fulfilled. He was counted among those who were rebels. Yes, everything written about me by the prophets will come true." "Lord," they replied, "we have 2 swords among us." "That's enough," he said. Then, accompanied by the disciples, Jesus left the upstairs room and went as usual to the Mount of Olives. There he told them, "Pray that you will not be overcome by temptation." He walked away, about a stone's throw, and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will, not mine." Then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. He prayed more fervently, and he was in such agony of spirit that his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. At last he stood up again and returned to the disciples, only to find them asleep, exhausted from grief. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked. "Get up and pray, otherwise temptation will overpower you." But even as he said this, a mob approached, led by Judas, one of his 12 disciples. Judas walked over to Jesus and greeted him with a kiss. But Jesus said, "Judas, how can you betray me, the Son of Man, with a kiss?" When the other disciples saw what was about to happen, they exclaimed, "Lord, should we fight? We brought the swords." And one of them slashed at the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, "Don't resist any more." And he touched the place where the man's ear had been and healed him. Then Jesus spoke to the leading priests and captains of the temple guard and the other leaders who headed the mob. "Am I some dangerous criminal," he asked, "that you have come armed with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there every day. But this is your moment, the time when the power of darkness reigns." Today we'll be reading Psalm 94, verses 1 through 23, and here's an overview. See, God alone can judge and punish the wicked, but God's people must stand up and be counted in the battle for truth. It's easier to be a spectator or an advisor than to be a soldier. When you enter the battle against evil, rely on God. Don't go in there on your own, because God knows all about the enemy. You don't. He hears their insolent speech. He sees their wicked deeds, and he will eventually bring them to judgment. The captain of your salvation will not be caught off guard. God will teach you what to do in the process. See, the basic handbook for battle is the Word of God, and God will teach you what you need to know. Gideon was an ordinary farmer when God called him, and yet he became a mighty warrior because he let God teach him. Even though he was hiding from the enemy, God called him a mighty man of valor. God will help you fight. That's another principle we'll learn as we read Psalm 94. God is for you. He is for you if you are against what he is against. When you fight, he will help you. If you slip, he'll hold you. If you worry, he will comfort you. And if you're attacked, he will defend you. Who is on the Lord's side? Are you? Psalm 94, verses 1 through 23. O Lord, the God to whom vengeance belongs, O God of vengeance, let your glorious justice be seen. Arise, O Judge of the earth. Sentence the proud to the penalties they deserve. How long, O Lord? How long will the wicked be allowed to gloat? Hear their arrogance. How these evildoers boast. They oppress your people, Lord, hurting those you love. They kill widows and foreigners and murder orphans. The Lord isn't looking, they say. And besides, the God of Israel doesn't care. Think again, you fools. When will you finally catch on? Is the one who made your ears dead? Is the one who formed your eyes blind? He punishes the nations. Won't he also punish you? He knows everything. Doesn't he also know what you are doing? The Lord knows people's thoughts, that they are worthless. Happy are those whom you discipline, Lord, and those whom you teach from your law. You give them relief from troubled times, until a pit is dug for the wicked. The Lord will not reject his people. He will not abandon his own special possession. Judgment will come again for the righteous, and those who are upright will have a reward. Who will protect me from the wicked? Who will stand up for me against evildoers? Unless the Lord has helped me, I would soon have died. I cried out, I'm slipping, and your unfailing love, O Lord, supported me. When doubts filled my mind, your comfort gave me renewed hope and cheer. Can unjust leaders claim that God is on their side? leaders who permit injustice by their laws. They attack the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But the Lord is my fortress. My God is a mighty rock where I can hide. God will make the sins of evil people fall back upon them. He will destroy them for their sins. The Lord our God will destroy them. Proverbs chapter 14, verses 3 and 4. The talk of fools is a rod for their backs, but the words of the wise keep them out of trouble. An empty stable stays clean, but no income comes from an empty stable.